And the one on the right is, I describe as a narcissistic rabbit. Do you understand why? Yes? Because he is undoubtedly looking at his own reflection in the pond. There's his head, there are the two ears, there are his two ears reflected in the pond. So this is a Pyarg at his best. And so, sorry, here is the health warning. Do look away if you don't want to see something gruesome. Because near the city of Kalinjar, the rebel, Khan Jahan Lodi, was caught and beheaded. And he is just there. And I don't know if you look at this chap here and follow his arm down, he is actually cutting off. He's halfway through his throat. I'm sorry to give you the details, but that's what is happening. And for those of you at the front, if you look at this gentleman, if you follow his arm down, you see that he's casually holding a severed head. And this man is looking quite relaxed. A severed head. And for good measure, there are a few severed heads just here. Now, so this is what, but just before I show you a detail, and the detail is even worse, but you have to see it, this painting, by the way, this is upstairs, so do go and look at it. This painting was done by an artist called Abid. Now, Abid was the son of a Persian painter who is also represented upstairs. So this is very much, picture is influenced by Persian art. And do you remember I said that Persian art was not too good at perspective? Now, if you have a hill in the background and you have people looking over the hill, should they be big or should they be small? Do you see that? This is actually rather ridiculous, I think, that the size of these people should not be as big as that if they're half a mile away behind it. Anyway, there we are. But I'm going to show you a detail from here, and so do look away if you don't want to see it. It is brutal. Now, part of the reason for this is to discourage other rebels. This is what happens to you if you rebel against the emperor. But one of the scholars Milo and his colleague Ebba Koch, who actually studied these paintings in huge detail, discovered that these severed heads, on them is a fly, which is, and you don't want to know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway, it was engorged with blood. I mean, that is the detail. So if you reckon that the whole picture is only letterhead size, and this detail is about anyway, it is stunning. But I'll go on quickly. Let's go to this girl, because about 3 weeks after that incident, very sadly, Mumtaz Mahal, Shah Jahan's favourite wife, dies in Burhanpur, where the court was. And she dies, and the following year, Shah Jahan begins to build for her the Taj Mahal. So without Mumtaz Mahal, no Taj Mahal. It took about 22 years to build, and I'm sorry the Princess of Wales isn't there, but anyway, and sadly, in the manuscript, we do not have a contemporary picture of the Taj Mahal. But now our story is going to Western India and going to the city of Hooghly, which is just here, and that is today's Calcutta, which you'll all have heard of. Through the city of Calcutta runs the river Hooghly. And the town of Hooghly was a Portuguese town. Do you remember that Akbar was very willing to allow foreigners, the Portuguese, Jesuits, whoever it was, to come to India? And you will have heard of the colony of Goa, just there. That's another Portuguese colony, but Hooghly was another. But by that time, the Portuguese, that we're talking about 1631, 32, the Portuguese had begun to misbehave. They were trying to convert some of the Muslims and Hindus to Christianity, and they were abusing their trading rights as well. So that wasn't good for the Indian population. So we're going to have a scene in Hooghly, and then we're going to go back to the city of Agra here, because that is where the main capital was. So let's have a look. There is the river Hooghly. The city of the town of Hooghly is here, looking very westernized, with a church here, a Christian church. Here is the Shah Jahan's army, who is very cleverly has blocked off the river with boats so the Portuguese couldn't get out. And the Portuguese are busy removing their treasure from their treasury because a bomb has just been put there by Shah Jahan's troops. I'll show you a blow-up of that. It looks like this. So there is the treasury, which has just been bombed, and here are the Portuguese removing the treasure from the treasury. After that, some of the Portuguese had to go up to Agra to pay their respects to the emperor, and there they are, the Portuguese carrying gifts in similar boxes to the one we've just seen. But this, of course, this depiction of the Portuguese is in a small part of a bigger picture that is this. So there are the Portuguese down here in a very junior position. What I should have mentioned, in these formal court scenes, the convention is that the emperor is always top center on his throne, sitting on his throne, and as usual, his 4 sons, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are the Portuguese. Now let's go on to the Mughal emperors borrowed a tradition from the Persians. You may remember the Shah of Persia used to be weighed on his birthday each year, and that's exactly what's happening here. This is, I'm a bit of a date fetishist, this is the 5th of January, 1632. This is Shah Jahan's 40th birthday, and can you see he's sitting in a scales here? And in the opposite pan, I'll show you that in blow-up, is a lot of gold and jewellery being weighed, and the scales are here. This, by the way, is by another of the artists called Bola, a Hindu. And in it, I'll show you a couple of things before a blow-up. There is, for instance, always is the Prime Minister, the 4 sons, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And always, for instance, the finance minister, Afzal Khan, and there is the Prime Minister's son, Shaista Khan. But what I'd like to concentrate just very briefly is on Jafar Khan, just there. Now, by this time, Mumtaz Mahal, Shah Jahan's favourite wife, had died. His eye strayed a bit, and it came to light on the wife of Jafar Khan. That was, in fact, Mumtaz's sister. And therefore, Jafar Khan here had a choice to make. He could either accept the situation and be promoted, or he could protest and be executed. What do you think he chose? He chose to accept the situation, and therefore he became more senior. We know he's more senior because he's closer to the emperor. In other words, a convention, the closer you are in the pictures to the emperor, the more senior you are. But let's just see. Here is a close-up of the emperor on his birthday, sitting in the scales. There are the scales. And there, in the opposite pan, are silk purses full of money and jewellery, the value of which was given to the poor on his birthday. So the poor were very keen that Shah Jahan had a good breakfast on his birthday. Anyway, that he was heavy as possible, basically. Now, a small prize should really be given to anybody who can identify who this chap is, apart from Milo. Any remembrance? Somebody's got it. Excellent. He was a Persian ambassador. Do you remember Muhammad Ali Beg? Because a Persian ambassador had to go round wherever the court was. He actually, I don't think he's changed his shirt. That's the same shirt. Anyway, let's go on. Now, let's have a quick birthday here because, no, sorry, not a birthday, a wedding. The Indians love good weddings, and they make a terrific job of it. And the wedding is going to take place of Shah Jahan's oldest and favourite son, a boy, an 18-year-old man called Dara Shikoh. And this is the procession, probably several weeks before the wedding, of the wedding. I'm sure you've all had to deal with children's or grandchildren's weddings. Well, all these are the wedding presents. In these trays, all these are the wedding presents. I'll give you a close-up. This is by an artist called Bishan Das, who depicts wonderfully coloured horses, as you can see here. This, by the way, is in the city of Agra. That's the river Yamuna running through the city. And the presents are being accompanied by all the usual suspects. Azaf Khan, the Prime Minister, Afzal, the Finance Minister, Shaista Khan, the son of the Prime Minister, and Sadiq Khan, his brother-in-law, the thug. Anyway, there we have it. I'm going to show you a blow-up of this gentleman here, and this is what he looks like. And those trays, covered with silk coverings, have probably mostly jewellery in them, which was going from the bridegroom's house to the bride's house. This is the back of the procession. The front of the procession looks like this, also by Bishan Das. Some more very colourful horses on the left. And in the centre are some wonderful elephants, as you can see. Now, one of the conventions of Mughal painting at this stage was that senior Mughal ladies were not permitted to be depicted. For instance, we don't see Mumtaz Mahal in this manuscript. However, junior ladies are depicted, including those playing instruments. And there on the elephant's back, you can see that all the ladies in the bands are entirely consist of ladies. And I'm sure you know that the man who is in charge of an elephant is called a mahut. And so there is a mahut there. There is another mahut there. And I've been studying this wonderful manuscript for many years, and I keep on seeing new details. One of the details I saw quite recently was one of the ladies in one of the elephants is being rather familiar with the mahut. Can any of you see that? This girl has her hand on his shoulder, which is very naughty. Anyway, there we are. This sort of detail comes out this whole time. Now, the procession that I'm talking about was going from the... Oh, by the way, just to get your bearings, this is the city of Agra. So the Taj Mahal is there. This is the fort in which poor old Shah Jahan was locked up when he was deposed by his third son. That is the bridegroom's house, Dara Shikoh. The bride's house is over here, so the procession is having to go along here and then over there. And the bride and the groom, you won't be surprised to hear, were very closely related. They were first cousins. I don't know if you can see. So there is Shah Jahan. His oldest boy, Dara Shikoh, was marrying the daughter of Shah Jahan's second brother, the one who drank himself to death, Parvez. So they were very closely related. And here is another part of the ceremony. Again, we can't see the bride, which is a bit of a pity, but at this ceremony in the fort at Agra, the emperor is giving to the bridegroom something called a sera, which is a veil of pearls. And I'll show you, this is by a man called Bulaki, I think. Yes, there it is. And by the way, I should have mentioned, Shah Jahan loved to wear glamorous halos. That's a whole different subject, but anyway, he's on a wedding halo there. And this is the veil of pearls here. And that, Shah Jahan is going to put it on his oldest son's headdress here. There is one of the other sons. There is the Prime Minister, Azaf Khan, as always. And this is the river. The other side of the river, I don't know if you can see, there are a row of elephants over here. And from the backs of the elephants, there are fireworks that are being let off. And you can see the reflection of the fireworks in the river. This is just another. You can study these paintings the whole time, and the details are phenomenal. So let's go. Oh, now this I do have an admission to make, and that is this is my favorite picture of the 44 in the book. It's an elephant fight. In fact, it's an elephant fight that's gone wrong. Only emperors were allowed to stage elephant fights, and the text tells us exactly what's going on. We even know the names of the elephants. This is Sudaka. This is called Surat Sundar. And the text, this obviously, Sudaka has meant to be fighting this elephant, has got a bit bored and has decided to have a run at the emperor. There's the Emperor Shah Jahan just there on the banks of the river Yamuna in Agra. And the text, he's in danger of his life here, but the text tells us that in fact it gave an opportunity for one of his 4 sons to show princely valor. In other words, this is what princes love to do in a dangerous situation, to show their bravery. And so the third son, Prince Aurangzeb, only age 15, is here. And the text says that Prince Aurangzeb stopped the charging elephant with his spear. You see the spear just there? I think that's a bit unlikely myself, yes? But the reason that this is my most favorite picture in the whole book, and I hope it may be yours, is because there's something incredibly useful for all of us in this picture. And that is, next time you find yourself on a runaway elephant, I can tell you how to stop it. I bet you know the mahut is meant to be in control of the elephant. In this case, of course, there is the mahut. He's not in control. But what you probably didn't know is that elephants have 2 braking systems. They have a foot brake and a hand brake. And the foot brake, which he has applied ineffectively, is that log of wood just there, attached to a rope, attached to the elephant's ankle. That hasn't worked, and very culpably, the mahut has not applied the hand brake.